The fight for the unborn doesn't just take place in the White House. It also takes place among our lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
And that is where we find EWTN Capitol Hill correspondent Erik Rosales. Erik?
Yes, good morning, ladies. Yeah, as many of the colleagues have been mentioning, it's not as cold as it was during previous years, and that's definitely good news for the tens of thousands of people who are going to be making their way up Independence Avenue past the U.S. Capitol. And it was just this week inside that Capitol behind me that the final texts of the three major appropriation bills were released, including funding for the Labor Department and the Department of Health and Human Services. And it was just yesterday that in the House that House lawmakers ended up passing those bills, and they now move on to the Senate. Pro-life provisions like the Hyde Amendment, which prevent taxpayer funding for abortions, and conscious protections for such people like doctors are still in the government funding bills. However, Democrats, they vowed to hold them up and not support them.
We're telling our Republican colleagues, you cannot run away from the truth. Your record on women's health care is outright abysmal, shameful, and out of step with most Americans.
It's clear that the heartbreak and damage being caused by Republicans' war on abortion is only growing, but so is the public opposition. The outcry is getting louder and louder as more and more people see the full horror of abortion bans.
But Republicans in both the House and the Senate say they are committed to protecting life.
Tom Cole and Robert Aderholt, respectively the chairman of the full committee and the subcommittee, were absolutely faithful in fighting to make sure the Hyde Amendment was retained. We know this president, President Trump, has been very strong on ensuring that the HHS appropriations bill cover and include the Hyde Amendment.
I always say, life is sacred, life is precious, let's protect it, and so let's make sure, obviously, the protections that have historically been part of the appropriations bills, particularly the Hyde Amendment, and we need to make sure that that remains.
And pro-life lawmakers are calling for the Hyde Amendment to be made permanent.
We don't need to be doing this ad hoc. Every bill that comes through, we have to add Hyde Amendment. I want to see a Hyde Amendment made permanent so that we don't have to do this in every bill.
Although the Hyde Amendment remained in these appropriation bills like it has for the past 50 years, conservative organizations like the Heritage Foundation say expanding it will be difficult.
For almost 50 years, Democrats in Congress have, held their nose and voted for these appropriation bills that have Hyde attached to it. Where they really seem to have the red line is expanding it or applying it further.
Republican lawmakers tell me they will fight to maintain pro-life policies.
That's obviously a big priority for us and our members in both the House and the Senate and the White House, is to ensure that those important pro-life provisions continue to be maintained in legislation that comes through the Senate and the House.
And that is something very good to hear from the majority leader, that pro-life protections are a major priority for that party. Now, something else that we're going to be watching very closely is what's going to happen with health care and the Obamacare subsidies. And we hope to find that out in the next couple of weeks, if no taxpayer money for abortions will be included in this reform. And also the reconciliation bill is what we're going to be watching, as we know from last year, which prevented Planned Parenthood from receiving federal funds for 1 year. That ends on July 4th of 2026. So that's a date. As it gets closer, we're going to be watching to see if Republicans are able to pass that again. And the most realistic opportunity will be tying it to the government funding bill that possibly will be brought over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be watching that as well. So a lot of things are happening up here on Capitol Hill in the pro-life movement. For now, I'll send it back to you in the studio.